Hey folks, this is We Are Change Fresno on 1680 AM Conservative Talk. I'm your host, Stuart Webb, with my co-host, Sam Chady. We're going to get into some news, some solutions, and we hope that you're in for a treat and a ride. So I'd like to make my opening statement. Freedom works, okay? I think all of us need to really take that in and think about what that means, because freedom works. Freedom really does work. Sam?
Freedom and liberty do work, Stuart. That's what's brought America to be the most prosperous nation in the history of the world. But as we speak, and the reason we do this show is because the establishment is attacking freedom and liberty on every front, every second of every day. As we will continue to report, we are under chemical, economic, psychological, biological, and genetic attack by the scientific dictatorship of technocratic social engineers, primarily run by the Federal Reserve private banking cartel.
It's getting ridiculous. We have USA News saying that, inflation is the reason that prices are rising. Well, really, it's because the Federal Reserve creates money out of thin air. That's what causes prices to rise. When money is created that is not real wealth and it's put into our monetary system, and it causes prices to rise. And the people that are hurt the most are the laboring class, the people that make the least amount of money, because they don't get the new money when it's newly created. But the problem is that the general public does not understand what inflation really means. Sam?
Look it up. The economic fact is inflation is a hidden tax. We in the state of California just passed a budget this last week of $156 billion. As we reported last week, $36 billion came up missing, was misallocated, and somehow an audit found it, and somehow it got put in the right place, and not 1 cent was missed by the taxpayers, according to the state controller's office. And so we're $7 billion larger than last year's budget here, Stuart. And the Democrats are going to go on a spending frenzy now because we got a $156 billion budget in the state of California.
Well, they're saying we have money. We actually have some surplus money after doing the budget. So instead of giving the taxpayers a tax refund or a tax rebate, which we're supposed to get back when we have a surplus because we pay for them to operate, instead of that happening, oh no, Governor Jerry Brown says there's no way, we got too much to do, which means they have to, spend more money, invest in things like high-speed rail that are an absolute boondoggle, as everyone continues to say. But really, it was originally $10 billion. Now it is proposed $68 billion, but that's being modest. I mean, we know how the government operates. It's going to be double or triple that. So we have the governor saying, since we have a surplus, let's not pay down the debt. Let's not give our taxpayers a refund. Let's just spend more money.
Let's continue to spend until we collapse this economy, because that is the plan of Jerry Brown, the Democrats, and all the rest of the folks that want to collapse America into a third world hellhole, just like Mexico and the rest of South America, where socialism runs rampant. Well, we are in a debt-based monetary system. The economy will never recover until we abolish the Federal Reserve, and that's the fact of the matter. We're going to get into the United States being at a record all-time debt high in the next segment. But a little bit more about California's state budget is the fact that Jerry Brown is going to use the AB 32 carbon tax money to fund the high-speed rail, and a lot of people say it's illegal, but he continues to do it regardless of the fact that the high-speed rail project will create more carbon emissions.
We're being duped at every level by our government. So we have the carbon tax here in California, like Sam just stated, but to actually cut down on carbon emissions, we need to produce more carbon emissions by taking all of our tax dollars and building a high-speed rail that no one's going to use, that will probably never get built, creating many carbon emissions. So the governor is selectively not obeying that law that we all have to obey by cap and trade to pay for something that ultimately taxpayers don't want. It's an unpopular project now because of the cost. And so it's a scam job. It's a screw job. And they're saying, oh, well, we want to cut down on carbon emissions, so we're going to build this. But in that 6 years that they're proposing it to be built, which won't be 6 years, it'll be probably double or triple that, they're going to create carbon emissions. And it's already violating the supposed cap and trade law. And even Democrats are saying now that he's not even going to obey the law that we have in place. So how are we supposed to believe that this is the right thing to do?
AB 32 is going to be a private slush fund for Jerry Brown and the Democrats to go on their wild spending sprees to buy votes from illegal immigrants who they're bringing in this country right now as we speak. Another big part of the corruption here in California is the public employees. The California Policy Center released data from 2013 payroll and pensions. And some of the most egregious offenses are, for instance, Los Angeles Fire Department earned a pension payout, that's the chief of it, of darn near $1 million, Stuart. That's a fire chief making $1 million payout on his pension. And the Alameda County administrator made $654,000 total compensation in 2013, while her assistant made $338,000. That's taxpayer funded, people working for the public, making rock star, movie star salaries here, Stuart. I mean, it's insane. Do they offer that much value for the service they're providing to garner this type of pay? I really don't think so. It's leading toward the collapse, and these people are selling America out.
Exactly. What is the benefit? Actually, what is the incentive to work in the private sector now when our government officials and people that just work in government now make more on average than the general public does on a yearly basis? So, I was looking at some of these numbers. I didn't see anything below 40 grand, barely even into the 40 grand. It was all above 50 grand and above, and above. It's unbelievable. There's no incentive to work in the private sector anymore because we just work to pay for these lavish lifestyles of government workers. And that is the bottom line. I'm not saying all people in government have not worked hard and really done the public service, but these salaries and these pensions are unbelievable. And what is the incentive to work in the private sector now?
Stuart, if you're smart, you'll get a job with the government as it stands now.
Yeah.
And yeah, nobody's saying the government doesn't work hard, deserve an honest pay for an honest day's work. But these are these guys rock stars? Are they producing anything that's worth $1 million salary? For instance, the pensions, CalSTRS, we saw 8,437 retirees take home six-figure pension payouts. That is not sustainable, and it's unfunded liabilities taken on by the state. So out of one side of their mouth, they're telling you the economy's recovered, everything's fine, but yet they don't talk about these unfunded liabilities. Some more from the pensions at CalSTRS is 730 collected at least $150,000, and 54 made over $200,000, Stuart. I mean, is the value of the service they provided worth the money that they're receiving in retirement? I don't really think so, because our society's collapsing all around us.
As government grows and becomes more and more inefficient, it seems that people are getting paid more on average. So that really should tell us something, okay? So as the government does worse, they get paid more. That's just the reality. Like Sam said, society is collapsing, okay? All those pension funds, those big pension funds, they can't sustain that. They've already admitted that they have 70, how much was it? $74 billion dollars in liabilities.
Unfunded liabilities.
So all those people that are my age and younger or a little bit older than me, they're not going to get that because they can't sustain that. They're not going to be able to pay you that amount when it comes time for you to get what you want. And that's the same thing with Social Security. I'm never going to see, there's no bank account that has my Social Security savings in it. That's already long gone. So but ultimately, the more, Ron Paul talks about this, the more inefficient government becomes, they just get more funding. So, but in the private sector, that would never happen, okay? You'd have to fix the problem before you don't just get bailed out by the public, okay? Because that's what the government does. If they fail, we need more funding from the taxpayers, and then they fail again, and we need more taxpayers' money on top of that. So in the private sector, that would be absurd if that happened.
To top off the absurdity of the lies of economics given to us by the government, they never include, or they never talk about, the mainstream media or the government never talk about the comprehensive annual financial statement, and every municipality is required to issue one every year. In that statement, you will find investment income, which is never included in the budget, Stuart, and we are always fighting against the budget here in the state particularly. This year is an exception. But there is a lot of money sitting right there, taxpayer money and investment income that you will never hear anyone talk about.
We need to audit our government as much as possible, but the problem is we can't even audit the monetary system, the center of our monetary system, which is the Federal Reserve. We never see any audits out of them. The Congress won't audit them, but they literally create money out of thin air and are private and above the law and exempt. So that's how government operates now. It's just we're just not going to show you what we're going to either give you fixed numbers, or we're going to say that there were errors and then fix them and then say that the money went back to where it was supposed to go. It's unbelievable, and you just can't trust at this point, especially California. You just can't trust what they're putting out to be accurate.
Well, they misplaced over $30 billion and then somehow say that no money was lost. So, yeah, it's hard to trust them, and they're not being honest and forthcoming with the public, who is admittedly financially illiterate. But anybody that does any kind of study of finance and economics can tell you that they're lying about the budget. Anybody that's honest about it, at least, Stuart. But let's move on here out of economics to some local news about protesting the police. We had some local activists who were out there protesting the recent shootings by police officers there in Fresno. And a couple of them went to the police memorial, and they went and wrote some derogatory statements about police on it with chalk, and they were subsequently arrested. And the mainstream media is calling it vandalism, which is a false use of the term. And so, Stuart, do you think that what they did was vandalism?
Well, it doesn't even really matter if it was vandalism or a crime, or because the cops are above the law. And this is nothing against police, but police, you are now put in a position by our society and your higher ups and the federal government. I mean, you have a license to kill. And when was the last time a cop was convicted of murder, even if they had the murder on tape? They'll never be convicted. They're militarizing our police and making them have a license to kill. And so just because some protesters want to protest and write chalk on, I'm sorry, yes, that seems like it's a hindrance on you, but really people are pissed off about what's going on. The militarization of police acting like they are above the law. Even if you don't agree with everyone protesting, they still have the right to protest, okay? And that really is the bottom line, is that we have a right to protest in this country, and you can't, and for chalking something, that's not vandalism. There was no property damage. You just want to put them in jail because you feel like it, and you can because you're above the law. Anyway, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Brought to you by our sponsor, FresnoForward.com.
Listen up, Fresno. Are you tired of boring local news coverage? Then log on to FresnoForward.com, the Central Valley's #1 source for independent, local, and alternative news and views. FresnoForward.com is updated daily, bringing you stories on government corruption, local activism, Fresno culture, and so much more. Did I mention FresnoForward.com has no ads or signups required? FresnoForward.com. You'll love.
Hey, folks, we're back. Going into our second segment. What do we got, Sam?
Well, we're going to still continue to talk about the militarization of local police forces here. And we're going to talk about some positive action that the Fresno police chief has taken to actually meet with the protesters and work out some type of civil agreement about police officers' use of force.
Well, that's good. It says here at FresnoForward.com, says that Chief Jerry Dyer is going to meet with protesters that are protesting Fresno PD. And hey, that's what you're supposed to do. You're a public servant. So, and meeting with them, they act like meeting with them is this some big deal, like we're terrorists or something for protesting. They have the right to protest. If you want to go discuss what they're protesting, that's fine. But we have a right. It's the First Amendment to protest.
That's right, Stuart. But I want to give Jerry Dyer credit for reaching out to the people, because we need a civil discussion about police violence, because there's a lot of bad guys out there. Everybody realizes that. No one's denying that. But police seems like nowadays just pull out their weapon and shoot first and ask questions later. And so these protesters have a legitimate beef in my mind. And
cops are put in a horrible position, because as the Federal Reserve cartel collapses this nation and our federal government doesn't enforce border laws due to, that have to do with immigration. Clearly right now they're not enforcing the federal law of immigration properly. And so as they're doing all this, of course, cops are put in a difficult situation. People don't have the unemployment rate is skyrocketing and continues to skyrocket. So you have a lot of people that have a lot of time on their hands that they either are getting welfare or they have to go live a life of crime. So police are put in a horrible position because they're the messengers that have to go shoot people. That's what the federal government has turned them into, instead of our public servants. And I understand things are bad, but we need to start looking at who's telling us that we need to shoot first, ask questions later, even though you have 3 or 4 other ways of containing the situation. And most of these cop shootings it's not with someone literally attacking the cop or shooting at the cop. They're just, like I said, they have a license to kill, but that's what they're being told. They are being told, shoot first, ask questions later, and that's a problem, and it needs to stop. We need to wake up police. You need to abide by the Constitution.
That's right, Stuart. Everybody knows that the police have a tough job, but the continuing militarization, SWAT teams, and black outfits are not where this country wants to go. We have our mayor is a globalist. I mean, she's part of the New World Order. She's going to Mayor Ashley Swearingen joined 200 mayors in a mayor's conference. That's a New World Order, folks. Okay, to discuss public safety. That's her number one concern. She went to this meeting to beg from the feds to get federal grant money for the continuing militarization of our police force and a bunch of other globalist agenda garbage. Okay, we need our tax money to stay here at home, and we can take care of ourselves without the federal strings attached, Stuart.
Why is she going to meet with 200 mayors across the country? You're our mayor. You need to stop running for state controller, be our mayor, fix problems we have here, but also it's such a cop-out to be taking federal grant money to put more police on our streets, when really all you're doing is you're gearing up for the collapse of what's going to happen in this. Fresno's unemployment rate is one of the worst in the country. And instead of fixing that problem by allowing the free market to operate and using the powers that you have to allow people to function correctly, allow businesses to function, we wouldn't need all the federal grant money to put more police on the streets. It's all about the police state. What happened to America? What happened to, hey, let's start businesses, let's have freedom, let's be civil with one another? That's not what it's about anymore. It's about let me get to the highest political position I can, and that's all that matters, because we know Ashley Swear to Sin. We call her Swear to Sin because that's what she does. She does not care about the people of Fresno, and I'm sorry if you're friends with her. She might be a nice person, but really it's a front, because when mayors all get together. Remember Michael Bloomberg, Mayors Against Illegal Guns? They like to talk about those kind of things. They're there to get the agenda. They're there to get their orders, okay, and to discuss how to do that.
It's New World Order what they're doing here. Mayor's meeting. We need a meeting here in Fresno about police violence, huh? At least Jerry Dyer's talking to the protesters.
Yeah, where's the mayor? Where's the mayor on that subject?
Wow, Stuart, it's amazing. She's doing globalist bidding, and if she cared anything about her country, then she'd come out with the truth about the comprehensive annual financial statements and the real finances of the city. But we know that's never going to happen. Moving on here to some national news. Gold has surged for the first time in over 9 months, and we saw a $41 increase in gold and a 70 cents per ounce increase in silver. And this is due to the Iraq tensions and the Fed announcing that it's going to continue its tapering policy.
Well, I think that as we see prices rise, people are now starting to really say, oh, prices are going up. I wonder why that is. Well, it's because of inflation. It's because the Fed's been pumping money into the economy, creating money out of thin air. That's what they're doing. And now we're actually seeing the laboring class is really seeing the average place you go to eat, prices have risen. And they haven't risen by 10 cents. They've risen by $1. Okay? That's what I'm seeing in my meals lately, is that they're rising not by tiny little percents. It's significant. So what's going to happen is the Fed, yes, they're already talking about, oh, should we continue to print? Well, they're going to have to, because they're going to have to keep the bubble going, keep the lie going. It's not real wealth, okay? If you just continue to print money. If you print 1 million Michael Jordan rookie cards, they're not worth anything because so many people have them, okay?
Devaluation of our currency is a major problem. It's been devalued upwards of 98% since the Federal Reserve was established in 1913. The Federal Reserve cut its growth forecast from 2.9 to between 2.1 and 2.3, when in the first quarter of this year we saw negative growth. And so that is another reason for the precious metals increasing at such a dramatic rate today. Stuart, we are in the most debt of all time, $60 trillion in debt to be precise. Or I'm sorry, $59.4 trillion. That is a mind-blowing number, but that's the state of the finances, of the national finances of the United States today. Can we ever repay this debt? No. Do they know this? Yes. That's why they're the pedal to the metal to collapse the system.
Yeah, Zero Hedge covers a lot of good financial information. And it says here on Zero Hedge, we are living in the greatest debt bubble of all time, and there is no way that this is going to end well. Well, yeah, if you have half a brain, you can understand that, but most people see that it's not going to end well, but they don't even know what the problem is to start. Okay? And that is inflation. If people knew that prices rose because of inflation, well, they'd say, well, how do we get rid of inflation? Well, you have to get rid of the Fed creating money out of thin air. So that means you have to get rid of the Federal Reserve. And people think without the Federal Reserve, well, this country would just go to shambles. Everything would stop. No, that's not true. That's a fallacy. And Zero Hedge also talked about in this article about how many people are in debt, have car payments that are on average $474, but they can't even afford to live in the house that they're living in. So I guess apparently in 2008, debt actually went down for a period, and people actually started cutting up their credit cards. But suddenly, I guess, with all the new fake wealth that the Fed has been pumping into the economy, people thought, oh well, I can buy a car now, I can buy a house now. But it's not real. It's fake. You haven't. The only way wealth is created is hard work, savings, and sacrifice. So if you're not doing that, you can't live lavishly, have a house payment, a car payment, but then have no money in the bank. That's not how it works. So it's very troubling to see where this is going to go. But the one thing you can do is not have debt. If you have debt, pay it off. That needs to be a priority, not a new car that you're going to have to be paying off for the next 10 years. This may not be America in 10 years.
Well, Stuart, you can live a lavish lifestyle if you work for the California state government, which we've already discussed previously. But like you said, yes, inflation is hitting us hard. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, if you can trust their numbers, maybe on this we can, their consumer seasonally priced index for meats, poultry, fish, and eggs hit an all-time high in May. And so that's your inflation right there. We're seeing record high prices for all these staple foods across the board. And we're going to continue to see it. And it may not be that the food cupboards are dry in this collapse. It'll be that the food cupboards are stocked, but you can't afford any of the food on those shelves unless you work for the California state government.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Why even have a job at this point if you're not working for the government? Because we're all just going to be working for the government. That's the whole plan, is that we're going to be forced into slavery instead of creating new things, new industries, being ingenuitive, inventing things, and having freedom. No, it's you work for the corporate government, and that's what it is. It's a corporate government. And people don't really realize that there's huge multinational corporations that don't pay taxes, but small businesses are taxed to death so that the pathway to wealth, to real wealth, is eliminated. If you can eliminate small business, you eliminate the pathway to wealth. If you're not a select insider, if you're not willing to sell your soul to the devil, literally, you will not have wealth. Okay? So the government salaries, it needs to stop. And some even congressmen actually have said that they don't get paid enough. And I completely disagree. They're public servants. Okay? And even if they were making $40,000 a year, I mean, still, you got to factor in all the lobbying and the backdoor deals that they're doing, which is just happens. It's pretty much on record that it happens all the time. So it's an open secret.
John D. Rockefeller was once famously quoted as saying, "All competition is a sin." And you see that attitude from these globalist multinational corporations. They don't want entrepreneurship and a free market economy in America. They want control and the controlled collapse of this economy. Part of that controlled collapse, besides the whole economics, and this plays into economics, is the illegal immigration. As we covered on this show last week, we're not being racist, mean-spirited, or hateful to not want illegal aliens to come in this country who have no skin in the game. They've never paid anything into the system to get free education, free health care, free housing subsidies, free transportation, preferences on jobs, preferences on government contracts, preferences on loans, and on it goes, to preferential treatment to people who have contributed nothing to this country, Stuart. It boils my blood. I want illegal immigrants to come here and do it right like everybody else has to, follow the law, and I'm your number one fan. But if you do it illegally, the way the government's doing it now, you need to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
Well, by them coming in illegally and taking entitlements, it destroys all of our liberties, and it's going to destroy theirs. Getting something free is actually not always a good thing. It's most of the time it's not a good thing getting something for free, because you know what's expected of you when you get something for free? To be a slave. Imagine if everyone on welfare was just cut off tomorrow. Well, you're literally a slave to anyone that can provide for you because you can't provide for yourself. You haven't learned, and you haven't saved, and you haven't worked hard. So you are going to be a slave. Free, when you're offered something for free, it's almost always never good. It's almost always never a good thing. So it's because politicians are preying on this illegal immigrant class to literally bankrupt the entire country and bring in the North American Union.
Cloward and Piven.
Folks, we're going to take a quick break, brought to you by our sponsor, FresnoForward.com.
Listen up, Fresno. Are you tired of boring local news coverage? Then log on to FresnoForward.com, the Central Valley's #1 source for independent, local, and alternative news and views. FresnoForward.com is updated daily, bringing you stories on government corruption, local activism, Fresno culture, and so much more. Did I mention FresnoForward.com has no ads or signups required? FresnoForward.com. You'll love it.
And we're back, folks, going into segment 3. Sam?
Yeah, you can see this immigration issue is balkanizing the country, and that's part of a well-known plan used by the English Empire to break up countries so they can never unite and see who the true enemy and threat is. They're using that same formula here through Cloward and Piven, balkanization, to help divide America, to bring in these voters who are going to vote progressive, liberal, whatever you want to call it. I call it communist, globalist. They're going to vote against the Bill of Rights and Constitution because they have never been properly assimilated to America.
And we harp on this, and we're going to continue to harp on this. Federal Reserve, Federal Reserve, Federal Reserve. How do you think we are able to pay for all these entitlements and all this debt, all these wars? It's fake wealth that we've stacked up, and as the dollar is now not being used in certain countries, it's going to continue to fall, and we're going to see the effects of inflation, hyperinflation, the fake creation of wealth. And you know what? We're all going to pay for it, the laboring class, not the elites. So the people that are getting stuff for free, it's not even what you're getting for free. It's an illusion. It's going to end. It has the Federal Reserve notes that they're printing and giving to you so you can buy food don't have any real value. And if you don't know that, well, good luck when the dollar has absolutely no value and people are burning it on the streets.
It's fiat currency. It'll go the way of a Zimbabwe dollar, which I have a $1 trillion note, which is, like Stuart said, worth about as much as toilet paper. And that's where the American dollar is going. The rest of the world is already hip to the game, and they're slowly divesting themselves away from it. And we will see here in America our standard of living continue to decrease as prices rise. Moving on here to another story that's very troubling, Stuart, and like we've been covering the VA scandal here. In San Diego, the Department of Homeland Security, they listed returning veterans as the #1 threat in this country. That's the Department of Homeland Security. It's online, all over the place. Look it up. Most recently, at a VA hospital in San Diego, 20 officers from DHS, Federal Protective Services, went on a presence deterrence sweep of the VA facility, essentially raiding it. Men with black suits and 4 bomb-sniffing dogs went into the facility asking questions, and anyone who took pictures or asked them questions was silenced, Stuart. And these are our veterans who have defended our Constitution and Bill of Rights against tyranny all over the world being abused by the Department of Homeland Security. That's part of the collapse right here. It just happened this week.
Since when has it become okay to literally terrorize our veterans in the hospital while they're in the hospital trying to get the care, which they probably won't get because we know how government healthcare works, trying to get the care that they need because they served our country, and that's what we promised them when they went and put their life on the line. And this is why I harp on the police state and conservatives. Please get over yourself. Stop being naive. We are witnessing a police state in America right now, currently. Cops have a license to kill. I'll be honest. I'm going to be real cordial with cops because I literally feel that they have a license to kill me for whatever reason if they felt threatened. Okay, that's all they have to say. I felt threatened for my life. No, I mean, it doesn't even matter. At that point, they're going to be proven innocent. Okay, so the conservatives, we need to understand that there is a balance when it comes to public servants and then people that just have the license to kill. Okay, there's definitely needs to be some sort of balance at this point when our police officers and Department of Homeland Security federal officers are just walking into veterans hospitals. And remember, because they're the #1 terrorist, walking in and terrorizing the hospital and doing sweeps and just saying, oh, and you can't take pictures. It's ridiculous. Wake up, We live in a police state, and they don't care if you're a veteran, okay? The police state does not care if you're a veteran because you are the enemy, okay? If you fought for the Bill of Rights and Constitution, you are the enemy.
Like, Stuart, I want the rule of law and law and order just as much as anybody else, but the Department of Homeland Security is a terrorist organization, and they're listing the guys who have already fought for this country for real liberty and freedom against domestic enemies. They are treating them as the number one terror threat. And like a disabled veteran that we interviewed a couple of weeks ago said, the reason why he thinks is because they are the leaders and they have the training and skills to rally the people to stand up against the tyrannical government. And so that's a perfect reason why. But now I'm going to shift gears here into the war abroad in Iraq that they're trying desperately to get us into. I'm going to read to you from War is a Racket, published by Smedley Butler, who at the time of his death was the most highest decorated Marine the U.S. military had ever seen. Okay? The first lines of his book go like this: War is a racket. It always has been. It is possibly the oldest, easily the most profitable, surely the most vicious. It is the only one international in scope. It is the only one in which the profits are reckoned in dollars and the losses in lives. And so I suggest everybody to go pick up a copy. It's a thin book, but a lot of great wisdom from Major General Smedley Butler. War is a racket.
War is a racket, and we all know that at a root level, at a gut level. Does the average person want to go blow stuff up or shoot people? No. And what they want you to think is that people in other countries want to do the same to us, okay? And on average, the general population wants to go about their lives and have children, have a job, and be prosperous any way that they can. So it is the elites that hate competition, like Rockefeller said, competition is a sin. They hate the fact that we just want to go about our lives and live cordially with each other and be prosperous. They can't stand that. They need to control, and they need to dominate. So people that promote the war, well, you know what? Pick up a gun, go over there and get on the front lines. Don't send an 18-year-old that just got out of high school over there to do the job that you're promoting, that you're telling other people we have to do in order to keep us safe. Why don't you go over there? I don't care if you're over 50. I don't care if you're 70 and saying it. You go over and do it. If you've never been in a war before and you're promoting war, you go do it. Don't tell other people to do it.
Well, Stuart, you know someone who's never been in a war, served in our armed forces, is Senator Dianne Feinstein, the great progressive liberal. She goes by those labels. I don't believe it. She's a flat-out tyrant. Okay, she is calling for the United States military to attack ISIS, however you pronounce it, in Iraq. Okay, that is not a very democratic thing to be doing, but that's what her and Barbara Boxer, both of our great senators here in this state, are calling for now. And also John McCain. All your usual suspects, Lindsey Graham, they're all out there calling for more war. Does that remind you of something? 1984, perpetual war. We've never been at war with East Asia. We've always been at war with East Asia. Very similar to Iraq.
Senator Feinstein, if you really want this war so bad, pick up a gun. Oh, wait, but no, you're a gun control advocate. You don't want people to have the right to bear arms. So why are you promoting people to go shoot people in other countries and to go blow stuff up when you're promoting gun control here at home? You're trying to limit someone's natural right to defend themselves and then promoting going overseas to kill people, okay? How about you go do it yourself if you really care that much? If you really are so concerned, just get on a plane and head over there, okay?
Stuart, the most concerning thing about this whole Iraq situation is the oil refineries, right? We want to make sure that the oil refineries are kept safe, and to hell with the Iraqi people, because we've already damaged their country irreparably, if I can pronounce that correctly, with depleted uranium. You can go look on the internet, the birth side effects, we destroyed the country. The troops are suffering side effects from it right now. Look up Dr. Doug Rocky. His testimony about it goes over great detail. It's a war crime to use depleted uranium, but the Pentagon doesn't care. Just like they don't care with collateral damage from the drone strikes. And so they want to get us into another war. Oh, and another thing, we fund Al-Qaeda. We fund ISIS in Syria or wherever. So the Muslim jihad extremists who no one wants to take over Iraq, obviously, are the best enemy money can buy.
That's true. They're the globalists' terror force. They're their personal military force, paramilitary. And you know what's so funny about this whole Iraq situation? And it's not funny, it's horrible, but it's funny that our government and our mainstream media will badmouth Russia for basically protecting their assets in what was the city in Ukraine that they took Crimea, while we're literally in the Middle East constantly occupying nations and running, basically just deciding how nations are going to operate. But then they try to push a narrative that Vladimir Putin's such a bad guy because he protected his assets for his country in a country that he had oil pipelines. I mean, what do you think we're doing in the Middle East? We're trying to destabilize the region so that we can take it over. And they're going to use Saudi Arabia, just like they used. Remember the 19 terrorists that blew up the World Trade Center? Yeah, 15 of them were Saudis. Okay, but yeah, we invaded 2 other countries north of them to destabilize those countries. It's unbelievable. But the general public doesn't really care or look into things. So as long as things aren't too bad here, they'll be okay with it. And that's really just not the attitude we need to have. We really need to understand what's going on and the effect that we're having over there.
The Obama administration's releasing terrorists so they can go over there and rally the troops so then we can sell more munitions to the military-industrial complex to go bomb those same terrorists that we just released. This is out of a bad sci-fi movie. No, this is what is really going on, folks. It's disgusting. Obama needs to be impeached. We need to continue to call for Obama's impeachment because he's committing crimes that are otherworldly.
He's committing crimes, like we said last week, on a weekly basis, breaking the law, and just he's not going to be impeached. The impeachment process has still not started. So conservatives, I will continue to say, conservative radio talk show hosts, just conservatives in general, you need to start really getting aggressive with your representatives, that if they have an R next to their name, and if they have a D next to their name, honestly. We're over the whole, Obama's black, he's a Democrat, Democrats won't vote to impeach him. There's a lot of Democrats that are upset too. And it's not about Democrat or Republican, it's about being an American and the Bill of Rights and Constitution, because it really doesn't matter without the Bill of Rights and Constitution. You couldn't be either of those things. You couldn't have freedom and prosperity. So we need to start calling for the impeachment of our president. We're gonna, what else is he gonna do in the next 2.5 years? I mean, he's still got a lot of time left to break laws on a weekly basis.
Stuart, there's no telling. These are just the scandals and crimes that have come out. So God only knows what's still more to come out. But if we're going to go to war, it needs to be declared by Congress. None of these Orwellian terms, police action, kinetic action, none of this garbage. If we're over there killing people, it needs to be declared by Congress like the Constitution says. So we can hold those accountable for when it goes wrong or give accolades to those when it goes right. But we haven't won a war since World War II, if you call that winning a war.
Yeah, I think that, and I harp on conservatives. I'm sorry, because I hear a lot of conservatives that are warmongers. They can't wrap their head around geopolitics or the fact that the Federal Reserve is a private company. It's really funny. So conservatives will be against abortion, and I'm completely against abortion. Of course, it's taking of a human life. I disagree with that. So if you're going to be against abortion, you need to understand that all human life, even if it's just a little tadpole in a woman's belly or a 70-year-old man, okay, it is human. There's life there. So sending people off to war to shoot other people that will indefinitely harm other people and kill other people, you need to be against that as well, okay? Exhaust all options before you decide to go to war. And even then, if someone's not actively attacking you, just because someone could pose a threat, it's understandable to make preparations for that. But if you shoot first, I mean, then the moral high ground goes away. It does, and you lose it. Anyway, we will be back for our last segment after a word from our sponsor, FresnoForward.com.
Listen up, Fresno. Are you tired of boring local news coverage? Then log on to FresnoForward.com, the Central Valley's #1 source for independent, local, and alternative news and views. FresnoForward.com is updated daily, bringing you stories on government corruption, local activism, Fresno culture, and so much more. Did I mention FresnoForward.com has no ads or signups required? FresnoForward.com. You'll love it.
Folks, we're back for our last segment of the evening. We appreciate you listening in, and we appreciate our sponsor, FresnoForward.com. Sam, what do we got on our last segment?
We're going to talk about some good news, some solutions, some positive things that are happening in America that we can hope people are waking up to turn this thing around, because one of the biggest lies that the government and the establishment are going to tell you is you don't have any power, and that's a lie. You have the power. You can go out there, go to your city council, county board of supervisors, speak up, speak your mind, tell them what's going on, tell them how to run your government, because they work for you. Make YouTube videos, go on a podcast, do your own radio show, do something, speak out and take action, Stuart.
Sam and I have been covering what's going on with the Endangered Species Act and the frog and toad issue of them closing off public access to our mountains, our land, our public land. And we're covering it, and no one else is around doing it, but we are. Not even the mainstream media is covering it. We were at the 10-year planning meeting, covering the entire meeting. Some great patriots there speaking common sense and really pouring their heart out to our forest supervisors, telling them, hey, I'm having issues using my own public land. How is this government at its best? It's just government at its normal, which is basically a big bureaucracy that says no, 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 no. You can't do this, you can't do that for whatever reason. So there's a solution right there. Go be a part of these meetings. Speak out about what's going on. And we do want to give some credit to Dean Gould, our U.S. Forest Supervisor for the Sierra Nevadas, or the Sierra National Park. Or is it Sierra National
Sierra
Forest?
Nevada Forest.
And we do want to give him some credit, because he says that the frog and toad being listed as an endangered species will not affect the public's access to his forest. And that is the correct position, because the public has spoken, and we do not want our forest to be shut down because of an endangered frog. And so we give him credit, and just by going to all these meetings and pushing him and putting him on notice that this is what the public wants, and if you don't do it, then there's going to be some issues. Just doing that, it has created, has been a victory for the Bill of Rights and Constitution.
Yes, thank you for all the patriots who went to that meeting and continue to support DefendRuralAmerica.com and concerned citizens, whatever they want to call themselves, the nameless group, people standing up for the Bill of Rights and Constitution. Thank you, all you patriots, and thank you to the forest supervisor for standing up, taking a lot of criticism. He was a man, stood up there and took it, so I give him credit for that. Stuart, some good news. Maybe the American people are finally waking up. In the most recent Gallup poll, Congress now has a 7% approval rating, okay? Because the buck stops with Congress. Like at these meetings, the question was asked because the excuse was made, well, we don't have the budget to stop forest fires. And then the buck was passed to Congress, because they're the ones that allocate the funds to the Forest Service to be able to manage this giant bureaucracy of garbage which they've created. But that's besides the point. The buck does stop with Congress, because they're the ones that allocate the tax money funding to government agencies who we expect to do public service. So Congress now has a 7% approval rating. which means to me that maybe the American public is finally waking up to the ineptitude, and we need to vote all incumbents out, Stuart.
Agreed. All new blood in there, okay? People that haven't been corrupted by the system, that haven't been in there. I saw a post yesterday on Facebook that put the number of years next to the face of the politician and name, and there was just massive amounts of politicians that we see every day on the mainstream news talking the same garbage that have been there over 20 years. Get them out. Vote them out. Anyone who's in, I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, Green Party, anyone who's an incumbent, get them out and just either write yourself in or put anyone on the ballot, just put them in. Okay, like Devin Nunes. You think I voted for him? No, of course not. Of course, most did still. He's a neocon warmonger, okay? And he's okay with the NSA spying on us. He thinks it's just, it's necessary for our national security. That's kind of his stance. It's ridiculous, and we need to vote him out, okay? So just like what happened with Cantor, people are fed up, okay? And it needs to happen everywhere in America. It needs to happen all over America. That's how we can change this. Start running for Congress, just in spite of these politicians. That's what I'm going to do.
At a 7% approval rating that the Congress now has due to this recent Gallup poll, zombies, witches, dog poop, potholes, toenail fungus, hemorrhoids, cockroaches, lice, root canals, colonoscopies, traffic jams, used car salesmen, Genghis Khan, communism, North Korea, BP during the Gulf oil spill, and Nixon during Watergate are all more popular than Congress right now, folks. That is disgusting. They have failed us. Congress or any government position was not meant to be a career position. You go and do your civic duty and you serve your term and you go home and go into the private sector. You don't make a career out of it and bleed the taxpayer dry like we've reported at the beginning of the show. They're receiving $1 million salary or pensions, bonuses, pensions. It's, man, Stuart, it gets me so heated that I barely have words because I know that they're criminals stealing from the public.
Dog poop is more popular than Congress. You know what that tells me? Electronic voting machines need to go. They need to go. Okay, maybe that's one thing where technology definitely needs to take a back seat to our lives. Is that these electronic voting machines? It's clearly fraud. 7% approval rating. That's been that low for years now, through election terms, through election years. So there's obviously something wrong there. Okay, if Congress has that low of approval rating, how are these people still getting in office? It doesn't make sense. So I think that needs to be investigated more. I mean, dog poop, lice. What were some of the other? You got to be kidding me.
Hemorrhoids.
I don't even know what that is, but I know it's bad. So, but Congress is still not as popular. Okay, when someone says Congress, that means they're just cringing. I mean, I wonder. It's unbelievable, and that just shows you the kind of corruption that we're under in this country, and we are entering into some crazy times, and we need to stop being apathetic. Okay, look, if you watch Game of Thrones, okay, I've never seen the show, but I've heard so much about the show, I probably could give you a summary on it, but the real battle is what me and Sam are doing here. Okay, it's an intellectual battle before the real battle begins. And if you are just too busy watching shows like Game of Thrones or any show that's provocative, that you want to feel like you're actually living in the arena through those actors on the television, you're not, and it'll never fulfill you. So get up off your butt, start doing some activism, start reading instead of watching the television, and just try to open your mind to freedom and liberty. Okay, it's exciting, and once you realize, if you really knew the amount of tyranny we're under and the amount of we're in a war right now. If you knew that we're in a war right now, that you would probably stop watching the television. But there's a blanket over it, okay, and we can't see it. But you've got to. It's starting to emerge. The hierarchy is starting to come out of the shadows, but this is where the war really happens. If you want to be in the arena of life, start doing activism, start your own YouTube show, start your own podcast, speak out, write papers, write books, do all that you can, and try to learn the Bill of Rights and Constitution and what they really mean.
You have the power, and one of the other biggest powers that you have is your purchasing power, how you spend your money. And so don't sit there and tell me that and throw your hands up in there. What are we going to do? Right there is the solution. Every time you make a purchase, look at who you're buying that product from. Some more good news, if you could call it good news. I mean, we're trying to claw back out of this lawless NSA spying police state. Court rules warrantless cell phone tracking unconstitutional. Investigators must obtain a search warrant from a judge in order to obtain cell phone tower tracking data that is widely used as evidence to show suspects were in the vicinity of a crime, a federal appeals court ruled Wednesday. And so that is a good ruling from an appeals court that, oh yeah, they do need a warrant still. We still have a Fourth Amendment in this country.
Only in some areas.
Well, Miami.
That's good. That's what needs to happen. Okay? If you know what? If people don't understand that if you lose one Bill of the Rights completely, you lose them all. Okay? And let's just take, for example, the IRS gate scandal. They can't find emails now, apparently. Wow, with all the technology that the NSA has, we can't. There's suddenly Lois Lerner, I guess, they can't find evidence against her because her hard drive crashed and her emails have been lost. It's a joke. When I read that, I actually thought it was I wanted to believe that it was actually a satire piece, but it was not. Okay? It's an absolute joke, and congressmen know that, so they're actually saying, okay, this is ridiculous. If we have to subpoena the NSA to give us to find the data mined, the metadata from these people's interactions digitally, I mean, at least investigate real criminals. Okay, stop harassing American citizens and spying on your average Joe that's just trying to make a buck here or there. Okay, let's spy on real criminals if we're going to spy on people. Okay.
I agree, Stuart. I mean, yeah, we still have a Fourth Amendment in this country, and the NSA cannot warrantlessly spy on everyone
Not
as
legally.
they please. Not legally. They are committing a felony every time they illegally wiretap. But moving on here, too, in the interest of time, Harvard scientists have released a new study solving the mystery of the bees dying all over the world, which sustain life on this planet, colony collapse disorder. It was found in a new study that pesticides neonicotinoids, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but look it up. Harvard study proves that these neonicotinoids in pesticides is what's killing the bees around the world. It needs to stop, and they need to be banned, or life on this planet will cease to exist.
Yeah, people don't understand the when bees are not able to pollinate, things can't grow correctly, and if they're all dying, how are we going to be able to grow even in a simple garden? I mean, if you go out to my dad's garden, there's bees everywhere, and there's insects everywhere, and that's how we're supposed to harvest our crops, is through, we have to use the land and the insects and the bees it all works together to harvest vegetables and everything we need. And if that can't happen, then Sam's right, we're going to lose life on this planet. Life will cease to exist if we can't feed ourselves. Okay? So it is a big problem that bees are dying everywhere. And, they made a movie about that, The Happening, about bees dying. And yeah, obviously it didn't it had an interesting twist that didn't really make sense. But they did bring up a good point that bees were dying all across the country. And there's something wrong, and it's not natural, and it should be investigated heavily. We need to keep an eye on that, because if bees cease to pollinate, we cease to exist.
This Harvard study says that the pesticides are the cause of it. Moving on here to gays with guns. Pink Pistols celebrate gay rights and gun rights. And regardless of how you feel about the whole gay issue, I want to give these gay folks credit for standing up for the Second Amendment. They're going to go ahead and hold a Pink Pistol rally in Los Angeles supporting the Second Amendment. So I want to give them many props for that.
That's awesome. Folks, that's all we have time for you tonight. We appreciate you listening in. And if you'd like to sponsor the show, get in contact with 1680 AM or me or Sam, and we'd be glad to have you as a sponsor. And we'd really appreciate the support of people who want freedom and liberty. Sam?
That's right. If you care about your children's future, you will speak out and take action now, because we are running out of time. The collapse is full speed ahead.
Good night.